Humblemud.
As a young kid with a PlayStation 1, there was nothing I wanted more than Pac-Man World, Spyro the Dragon, and The Legend of Dragoon. However, instead of Pac-Man World, my parents got me Namco Museum. Now, if you're a real one, you know that I love that game, so I am not by any means hating on it. I absolutely adore that game, but I would have loved to have Pac-Man World. Anyway, years later, I saw that my cousins had a copy of Pac-Man World 2, and the bright colors of this game, seeing Pac-Man run around in these wonderful 3D environments, just absolutely blew my mind. I wanted that game so badly too. Unfortunately though, I never had a copy of either of these games, so you can only imagine that when it was announced, I had to get Re-Pac, and then I had to get Re-Pac 2 as well. And let me tell you, this game is an absolute delight. I think 2 Re-Pac does a great job of capturing the vibe of the original while still having its own sort of art style and reinterpretations of the original game. I think it's got so much charm, and if I had to make another comparison, this game elevates the look of the original platformer, also adding some new flares and bells and whistles, while not outright replacing it, in a similar sense to how the Spyro Reignited trilogy did with the original PlayStation 1 Spyro games. And really quick before we dive into anything else, let's look at the story. So the ghosts infiltrate the Pac village, and Pinky is kind of creepily watching Pac-Man while he sleeps, but thankfully Pac Buddy wakes up. He gets up onto the bed, starts barking, scares her off, and then we have this really fun, almost Batman type of scene where Clyde gets scared at just the very sight of the Pac symbol. Love that. And once the ghosts are all proper spooked and looking over their shoulders, they accidentally bump into each other in front of the tree. Blinky gets them all together and reminds them of what their objective is, which is to steal the golden fruit. All of the ghosts start pulling down the golden fruit with glee and joy. I really feel like they don't know what they're about to do, and this energy starts flowing around, and you start to realize why this game came out just in time for Halloween.
I'm free from that infernal tree!
And then in the morning, the heaviest sleeper in the world, Pac-Man, wakes up to see that his beloved Pac village has been infiltrated with corruption. The Professor Pac runs up to him and explains what happened, letting him know that the legendary golden fruits have been stolen, and a great evil that one of Pac-Man's ancestors originally fought many years ago has been resurrected. Pretty cool Pac-Man lore, honestly. Pac-Man vows to defeat the Great Spooky and restore peace to the Pac-Land, but it's not going to be easy. More on that later. Oh yeah, and even Pac-Man has a voice in this game.
Oh, excuse me. Can't go adventuring hungry. How about a quick snack?
It works for the most part, but Miss Humblemud was never able to get used to the fact that he just says waka waka like a regular person.
Waka 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 waka.
And another thing is Pac-Man is not afraid to let you know just how much he enjoys food.
Tasty! Yummy! Yummy! Tasty! Tasty! Tasty!
He's just like me, for real. So while your mileage may vary when it comes to how you feel about the voice acting, especially Pac-Man, I personally enjoyed his voice, and I prefer these cutscenes much more over the simple written text that was in the original game. Far and away the best voice acting in this game though, in my opinion, are the ghosts. They have so much personality, and each one is delightfully corny and over the top, just as they should be.
Welcome to the party, Pac-Man! You see, I had a hunch that Pinky, Inky, and Clyde wouldn't be able to beat you.
Took you long enough? Does this piece of fruit really mean that much to you?
I think the devs did a great job characterizing Pac-Man as well. One of my favorite scenes from the game is when you get into the second phase of the fight with Blinky, who says he's about to step some things up, and when he asks if everyone's ready for an encore, since this is sort of a hard rock metal themed boss fight, even Pac-Man himself says that he's down.
Yeah! Alright, it's time to redline this bad boy!
I really like how they captured Pac-Man's goofiness and aloof nature, and you can tell that they had a lot of fun putting these scenes together. So when it comes to the gameplay, you'll find yourself on this large Pac-Man shaped island, which is a detail I really enjoy, and you'll find lots of variety from your typical grassy plains to treetops high in the sky to icy areas where you'll actually be skating and jumping off of ramps. There are volcanic caverns and dungeons, some surprisingly fun underwater areas, which I think is hard to nail in a platformer, and there's even this Star Fox style shmup section where you pilot this ship that Pac-Man gets, and it also serves as a nice little Beatles reference with that yellow submarine that he drives. Really fun stuff here. And there's also a very Sonic the Hedgehog inspired rail grinding and fast-paced skating section in the game, and Pac-Man's not afraid to show his influences on his sleeves here, as you'll also see a typical Crash Bandicoot style section where you're being chased by this giant snowball. There really is a lot here that you'll recognize in Pac-Man's abilities and the game's mechanics from Mario, Sonic, and Crash Bandicoot style influences, which I would say are probably the most prevalent. And to be fair, this game is a product of its time. It was made around the time that these franchises were killing it, so who better to borrow from? But don't let that make you think that this platformer is stuck in the past. Another thing that Re-Pac 2 does really well is it gives Pac-Man a host of new abilities. In the original game, he could perform a butt bounce, which is sort of like Wario's ground pound move, except he bounces, of course, and it was a simple but effective way to both traverse and damage opponents. In this game, however, if you time it just right, Pac-Man can do a super butt bounce, which will not only do more damage and give him more height in his jumps, but it will also leave behind a shockwave that can destroy traps and stun enemies. It's really helpful, and when you combine this super bounce and the new flutter jump that he gets as well, he can get some serious airtime, and it feels very satisfying every single time you land it. And you'll need it too, considering there are also more fruits in every single level in Re-Pac 2, and some of them are only obtainable if you're able to pull off that super butt bounce, giving you that extra jump height. Additionally, Pac-Man has the Pac Dot throw from Re-Pac 1. He's able to do his flip kick at any time now, as it's mapped to a separate button. In the original, he could only do it if he jumped up in the air. And another really big plus about this version of the game is that the rev roll is so much easier to control. If I ever made a mistake, I never felt like it was the game's fault. It was most definitely my fault. Whereas in the original game, I didn't use the rev roll all that much because I often lost control of it. It felt a little bit too fast, and I always felt like I was battling the camera when I used that move, especially if I went back towards the camera. Now, with that said, this game isn't perfect. It does have some camera control issues. I mean, I think those are common in just about any platformer. And another thing that I think a lot of veterans to the original are going to have to get used to is that Pac-Man's gravity is a lot different. He feels more lightweight. He can't butt bounce nearly as fast, which I do think is a little less fun in comparison to the original. And like I said, he's got a very slow fall speed, and so getting used to that change in gravity is going to take some time. Another noticeable addition to Pac-Man Re-Pac 2 that I personally really enjoyed were these gashapon machines that give you statues, which then allows you to decorate your Pac village with. And by the time you're done with it, you can really add a sort of personal flair, like all of these Pac-Man statues that I've got here. And it made me spend way more time inside of the village than I probably would have otherwise. And you may have noticed throughout this video that my Pac-Man had a snazzy outfit. So I'm wearing the Pac-Land costume here, of course, because that's so sick, but you have a variety of different outfits that you can choose between and unlock as you beat certain challenges and levels. And by the way, I believe the Pac-Land outfit was initially a pre-order bonus, but you can also obtain it if you get the Sonic the Hedgehog DLC that's coming up here soon. I went ahead and purchased it because I love Sonic the Hedgehog and I've really been enjoying myself with this game, so I'm sure I'm going to love it. And the Pac-Land outfit is a nice bonus. Of course, there's an arcade where you can also play the original Pac-Man and other Pac-Man games, which again you can unlock by completing certain challenges and different levels. There are also challenge levels themselves that are kind of like a remix version of the original Pac-Man games. And perhaps the wildest change is a post-game remix version of the game. There is an entire post-game campaign where you can play remix versions of various levels that introduce a lot more difficulty, stage hazards, and all kinds of things. But the change that will probably generate the most conversation are the bosses. They have been completely redone and on average are much harder than the original game. Now, Now, some of these changes I really enjoy, like the owl boss, for example. I just love his design. I think he plays really well. He's really fun to fight against. He's intuitive. He basically attacks by throwing his feather blades at you, which you can also use as ramps, by the way, with your rev roll. And once he loses them all, he's open to attack. And when you kick him, his head spins really, really fast, which is kind of a nod to how owls have quite a big turning radius with their necks. When you get to his second phase, he has lasers that he can shoot from his eyes. And then the remix version of the owl has such strong wings that he generates a wind current that pushes you back. Really cool. So yeah, while in general I enjoy a lot of the bosses in this game, there are some bosses that feel a little more frustrating and tedious as opposed to challenging. And one of those, unfortunately, is the spider mecha, because while I do really enjoy his hard rock aesthetic and his moveset is very creative, he can prove to be quite difficult, and this is especially so in the remix version where there are projectiles everywhere. It literally feels like that superhero who has the attack where he goes, "Random BS go," and there's just so much to dodge. Not to mention that almost all of the deaths that I faced were due to a random fireball dropping right over the gap that I needed to jump, and because we're looking at a fireball over lava, I couldn't see the shadow, and so it would insta-kill me, completely halting my momentum. I can't tell you how many times I struggled to beat that boss, and I really did not enjoy it. I just think that some of the bosses are a little overtuned when it comes to difficulty. Honestly, bosses like the Volcano Spider Mecha really bring back memories of like NES bosses. That's how hard this guy is. I also didn't find this game very fun from a completionist perspective. Every single level has a time trial mode, and I just couldn't really bring myself to go back and do the time trial other than to get a couple costumes. Another thing that's kind of frustrating about the difficulty of this game is that there is only the adventure mode and a fairy mode. And while the fairy mode is kind of cool in the sense that it brings back the fairies from the original Pac-Land, it kind of gives you too many things, like you are immune to damage, you can't get game overs, and there are additional blocks that will appear to help you with your platforming. And so for me personally, especially when I got to this remix portion of the game, there were segments where I wasn't really happy with either. I didn't want to play the fairy mode because it felt a little too easy, but the adventure mode was also making me pull out my hair and feel like I was wasting my time because I was just trying again and again and again. But at the end of the day, I loved being in this revamped world of Pac-Man. I had so much fun overall. A majority of the time I had this big, dumb, stupid smile on my face, and it really brought me back to the way that I felt when I played Super Mario Odyssey and when that game clicked for me, when I played Spyro Reignited Trilogy for the first time, when I played Astrobot last year. This game really has that sort of charm, and I'm really glad that Namco was able to get enough funds from the first Re-Pac one, I'm assuming, so that they could come to this one and pump so much more love into it. Re-Pac 1 was a great game, but this one is so much better, and you can tell that they really put some time into it. But yeah, despite its flaws, I love everything that this game tries to do, all the different gameplay elements it throws at you, like when you get in this underwater segment and you've got a sort of stealth element here where you've got to hide from this big shark. Camera's kind of wonky here, but you can see it here. And I've always thought that Pac-Man World was kind of an underrated platformer series, but in general, it seems like reception has been really positive towards Re-Pac 1 and 2, and that makes me really happy because maybe that means we'll get a third one day, and who knows, maybe we'll even get a new entry in the series. We've seen a resurgence in a variety of video game genres lately, and platformers are no different. And I'm really happy to say that, to me personally, Re-Pac 2 stands tall alongside Mario, Astrobot, and all the other great things that we've been getting lately. So if you're a fan of the original, or you've just wanted to try this one out, it's not linked to Re-Pac 1 at all, so don't worry, you can just jump right in. Or butt bounce, I guess.
Tasty!
But yeah, I think that about does it. I really enjoyed my time with this game. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay humble.